Humanity had always wondered what lay beyond the stars, but when their fleet stumbled upon the awe-inspiring warships of the Galactic Empire, they thought they'd found their match. Towering vessels bristled with weapons, their sleek designs oozing menace and power. But as the Empire's booming demands for surrender echoed across human channels, something unexpected happened. Humans didn't panic. They didn't fear. Instead, they laughed. What began as a clash of civilizations quickly unraveled into a surreal spectacle, proving that even the galaxy's mightiest empire could crumble before humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and in the vast darkness of uncharted space, humanity had ventured farther than ever before. Their sleek, state-of-the-art ships glided through the void with purpose, a testament to centuries of technological progress and human determination. It was not just the drive for exploration that pushed them forward, but the unyielding curiosity that had always defined their species. This uncharted sector held mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and with every passing light year, the crew's anticipation grew. Admiral Avery, commanding the fleet, oversaw their progress with the precision of someone who had dedicated their life to the stars. The fleet wasn't just any group of ships. They represented humanity's finest craft equipped with the most advanced weaponry, shielding, and navigation systems humanity had ever created. This wasn't merely an expedition, it was a statement of human resilience. The vastness of space was no longer an enemy, but a frontier waiting to be claimed. Then it happened. Out of the endless blackness, sensors picked up movement. At first, the readings were faint, indistinct pings on their radar that could have been debris or natural phenomena. But as they drew closer, the signals resolved into something far more sinister. Ships, hundreds of them, emerged from the void, their silhouettes massive and angular, with weapons bristling along their exteriors. They hung motionless in the abyss, their presence alone enough to make even the most seasoned explorers uneasy. The human fleet slowed to a cautious halt. The unknown ships dwarfed theirs in both size and number. They were unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Each alien vessel gleamed with an almost malevolent intent, their surfaces pulsating faintly with energy. The formations they held were unnervingly precise, as though choreographed to intimidate. And it worked at least momentarily. Humanity was no stranger to encounters with the unknown, but this fleet radiated a different kind of power, one that spoke of dominance and control. Then came the transmission. It wasn't a simple greeting or a request for communication, it was a declaration. A voice boomed through the fleet's communication channels, carrying with it the weight of authority and arrogance. It identified itself as the voice of the Galactic Empire, an interstellar force spanning countless galaxies. The Empire claimed to have subjugated every civilization it had encountered, folding them into its rule. Humanity, they declared, would be no different. Surrender, they demanded, or face obliteration. The message was theatrical, almost absurdly so. The voice spoke in tones dripping with condescension, detailing the grandeur of the Empire and its unbroken legacy of conquest. To the humans listening, it sounded like something out of an old science fiction novel, too self-important to be taken seriously. There was an unintentional humor to it, as if the Empire's emissary had rehearsed their lines for maximum dramatic effect. Admiral Avery and the crew listened in stunned silence, not out of fear but disbelief. They had prepared for countless scenarios: hostility, negotiation, even outright war. But this was something else entirely. There was no immediate panic among the humans, no scramble to comply. Instead, they exchanged incredulous looks and began to realize something remarkable. The Galactic Empire might have been powerful, but they had exposed a critical weakness. For all their bluster and show of strength, they didn't seem to understand who they were dealing with. Humanity wasn't just a fledgling civilization in awe of the stars. They were scrappy, resourceful, and above all, irreverent. As the Empire's transmission continued to extol its greatness, the humans couldn't help but see the cracks beneath the surface. It was as if the Empire was trying too hard to be intimidating. And in that moment, humanity's response wasn't fear, it was something far more dangerous. It was amusement. The tension on the human ships eased, replaced by a quiet, simmering confidence. Whatever the Galactic Empire thought it was dealing with, it was about to learn the truth. Humanity wasn't afraid. If anything, they were ready to laugh in the face of the so-called greatest power in the galaxy. The Galactic Empire's emissary continued its broadcast, speaking as if humanity's surrender was not a matter of if, but when. The voice was deep, commanding, and laced with arrogance, echoing across every human vessel with calculated precision. It spoke of the Empire's history, an endless saga of domination that spanned millennia. Countless civilizations had fallen to their might, the voice declared, their unique cultures absorbed into the Empire's vast machinery. The sheer scale of their reach was emphasized repeatedly, painting a picture of a galaxy completely under their control, their power extending into the farthest corners of existence. For the human crews listening, the transmission was surreal. They were no strangers to conflict. Humanity's history was a tapestry of wars, revolutions, and struggles for survival. They had faced extinction on their own planet countless times, clawing their way out of chaos to stand among the stars. The emissary's words might have been terrifying to a less seasoned species, but to humans they sounded almost comical. The Empire's grandeur seemed less like an unstoppable force and more like the boastful claims of someone desperate to project strength. The emissary described the consequences of defiance in excruciating detail. Entire planets, it claimed, had been reduced to lifeless wastelands for daring to oppose the Empire. Their military, unmatched in technological prowess, had crushed uprisings before they could even begin. The tone was clear: resistance was not just futile, it was suicidal. The message was meant to instill dread, to force humanity into submission without a single shot fired. Yet, the longer the transmission went on, the less intimidating it became. To the human crews, the Empire's strategy was laughably transparent. It was all theater, a carefully constructed illusion of invincibility designed to cow weaker civilizations into compliance. They noticed the cracks in the facade almost immediately. The sheer repetition of their achievements, the over-the-top descriptions of their power, the implied invulnerability, it all seemed too perfect, too rehearsed. Real strength didn't need to be flaunted so ostentatiously. Behind the bravado, the humans sensed something else: desperation. Still, they didn't underestimate the potential danger. The fleet they faced was vast, its ships enormous and bristling with weaponry. But something about the way they hung in space motionless, waiting, felt wrong. The Empire's confidence seemed brittle, like it could shatter under the right pressure. As the emissary continued, humanity's impression of the Empire crystallized. This wasn't an unstoppable galactic force, it was a bureaucratic giant bloated with its own self-importance. The Empire relied on intimidation as its primary weapon, assuming that fear alone would bring civilizations to their knees. But humanity had evolved in chaos, forged in fire and conflict. They weren't the type to be cowed by threats, no matter how grandiose. As the broadcast came to an end, the voice issued a final ultimatum: surrender or face annihilation. The human fleet remained silent, processing what they had just witnessed. The emissary clearly expected fear, submission, perhaps even immediate capitulation. Instead, what it received was something entirely unexpected. The silence aboard the human ships began to break, not with fear or frantic preparation, but with quiet laughter. It started as a few chuckles, then spread like wildfire through the crews. The absurdity of it all, the pompous tone, the exaggerated claims, the sheer arrogance of the message was too much to take seriously. Here was a force that claimed to rule galaxies, yet it felt as though they had stepped straight out of an ancient storybook villain's monologue. The laughter wasn't just amusement, it was defiance. The humans recognized the Empire for what it was, a relic of a bygone era, clinging to power through fear and bluster. They hadn't been intimidated. If anything, they were more confident than ever. The Galactic Empire had no idea what it was up against. And humanity, irreverent as ever, was ready to show them. The silence that followed the Galactic Empire's ultimatum was broken not by diplomacy or compliance, but by a sudden blinding burst of light. Without further warning, the Empire's fleet opened fire. Beams of energy erupted from the alien warships, slicing through the void with deadly precision, each one capable of obliterating a lesser vessel in a single hit. The human fleet, though smaller and outnumbered, was ready. Their ships scattered in an instant, moving with practiced precision as the incoming fire rained down around them. The first barrage was relentless. Massive explosions lit up the darkness as the Empire's weapons pummeled the space where the human ships had been moments before. But something strange happened. Despite the Empire's overwhelming firepower, Their attacks were failing to land significant blows. Human ships darted through the chaos with uncanny agility, their advanced maneuvering systems outpacing the sluggish targeting capabilities of the Empire's warships. Where the enemy relied on sheer size and firepower, humanity thrived on speed and adaptability. The humans responded swiftly. Railguns and directed energy weapons discharged from their sleek vessels, streaking toward the Empire's fleet. The counterattack wasn't meant to destroy outright, but to test the enemy's defenses. What they observed was startling. The Empire's ships, though massive and intimidating, reacted sluggishly. Their shields absorbed the initial hits, but the energy dissipated unevenly, suggesting inefficiencies in their design. The once mighty image of the Empire's fleet began to falter under closer scrutiny. Then came the mistakes. The Empire's warships, designed to operate in tightly controlled formations, began to falter under the pressure of human tactics. Their commanders, unprepared for the humans' unpredictable maneuvers, issued conflicting orders. Some ships fired prematurely, their energy beams missing their targets entirely. Others collided as they scrambled to realign their positions. The once precise battle lines of the Empire descended into chaos, their fleet's discipline unraveling before humanity's eyes. To the human crews, it was almost surreal. The Empire's ships, which had seemed so imposing moments ago, were now stumbling over themselves in the face of a real challenge. The humans exploited every weakness. Coordinated attacks targeted vulnerable points in the Empire's formations, forcing their ships into defensive postures. The human fleet's smaller size worked to its advantage, allowing it to weave through the gaps in the enemy's ranks and strike with precision. Explosions began to ripple through the Empire's fleet as their ships succumbed to the onslaught. One by one, their towering vessels faltered, their once impenetrable shields failing under sustained fire. The chaos only deepened as panic spread among the Empire's forces. Their reliance on rigid command structures became a glaring weakness. Without clear direction, their warships floundered, unable to adapt to the fluidity of human tactics. Amidst the carnage, a strange realization dawned on the human crews. This wasn't a battle between equals, it was a rout. The Empire, for all its bravado and technological superiority, had crumbled under pressure. Their might was an illusion, their dominance a fragile facade. What should have been a moment of dread had turned into an absurd spectacle. As the last of the Empire's ships retreated, the humans found themselves laughing not out of cruelty, but from the sheer absurdity of the situation. The Galactic Empire, feared across the stars, had proven itself to be not a juggernaut, but a paper tiger. The battle was over and humanity stood victorious not just in strength but in spirit. As the remnants of the Galactic Empire's fleet limped away into hyperspace, the humans watched their retreat with a mix of amazement and amusement. The so-called Invincible Armada, once touted as the ultimate force in the galaxy, had not just been defeated, it had unraveled before their very eyes. The once imposing warships, with their bristling weaponry and seemingly impenetrable shields, were now little more than scattered wreckage or flickering shadows vanishing into the void. The Empire's response came swiftly, though not in the way humanity expected. Rather than regrouping for a counterattack, they issued a transmission. The same emissary, whose voice had once thundered with authority, now sounded frantic, bordering on desperation. The tone was unmistakable. They were attempting to reassert control, to salvage the crumbling perception of their dominance. They framed their retreat not as a loss, but as a strategic repositioning, claiming that the humans had merely tested a minor fleet, not the full might of the Empire. To the human crews, it was laughable. The audacity of such a claim after the utter collapse they had just witnessed only solidified their suspicions about the Empire. The more the emissary spoke, the more it became clear that their confidence was a veneer, a carefully constructed facade designed to intimidate weaker civilizations. It was all theater, a performance meant to project strength where there was none. But humanity wasn't an audience that could be easily deceived. They had seen through the act, and the cracks in the Empire's armor were now impossible to ignore. Every grandiose declaration, every veiled threat only served to highlight their desperation. The humans listened not with fear, but with a growing sense of superiority. This was no unstoppable juggernaut. It was an aging behemoth, clinging to its reputation while its substance crumbled beneath the weight of its own arrogance. While the Empire's transmission droned on, the human fleet began to analyze the wreckage left behind. Among the debris, fragments of the Empire's technology were recovered and scrutinized. What they found was both fascinating and telling. The ship's systems were advanced, certainly, but they were outdated by human standards designed for brute force rather than efficiency. Their power relied on overwhelming numbers and intimidation, not ingenuity. The humans realized that much of the Empire's technological edge came from civilizations they had conquered and assimilated. They were not innovators, they were scavengers, building on the achievements of others without understanding how to adapt or improve. Even more damning was the discovery of internal communications intercepted during the battle. The Empire's fleet had been paralyzed by indecision, its commanders unable to adapt to the chaos. Their rigid hierarchies, so effective in maintaining control during times of peace, had become a liability in the face of humanity's dynamic tactics. Orders had conflicted, resources had been misallocated, and ships had fallen not to superior firepower but to their own inefficiency. The humans couldn't help but feel a sense of incredulity. How had this empire ruled for so long? How many species had been subjugated by fear alone, never daring to test the strength of their oppressors? The empire's reputation was its greatest weapon, and humanity had just torn it apart. The final moments of the transmission were almost pitiful. The emissary's voice, once booming with confidence, now wavered with uncertainty. They promised that this was only the beginning, that humanity would regret its defiance. But as the transmission cut out and the Empire's remaining ships disappeared from their sensors, the humans were left with an unshakable certainty. The Galactic Empire was no longer a threat. It was a shadow of its former self, its dominance a carefully maintained illusion that humanity had shattered with ease. For the humans, this victory was more than just a triumph of strength. It was a revelation. The Galactic Empire, feared across the stars, had relied entirely on the belief in its invincibility. Once that belief was broken, the Empire itself began to collapse. Humanity had not only won the battle, they had changed the galaxy forever. The humans didn't waste time basking in their victory. The encounter with the Galactic Empire, though unexpectedly farcical, presented a unique opportunity. The battle had not only exposed the cracks in the Empire's might, but had also opened a door to understanding the galaxy's larger dynamics. The humans knew that defeating one fleet was not the same as dismantling an empire, but they had learned a crucial truth: the Empire's grip on the galaxy was far weaker than it appeared. Back on Earth, the encounter sent ripples through humanity's burgeoning interstellar networks. Scientists, strategists, and engineers pored over the data recovered from the wreckage, dissecting every aspect of the Empire's technology. The findings painted a stark picture: the Galactic Empire's power was built on stagnation. Their ships, while visually imposing, were powered by outdated reactors, their weapons systems primitive compared to humanity's cutting-edge innovations. The Empire's reliance on sheer size and quantity over quality was not just a tactical oversight, it was a sign of deeper systemic decay. But what truly captivated humanity was the social and political structure underpinning the Empire. Analysis of intercepted communications and recovered archives revealed that the Empire ruled through fear, exploiting the psychological fragility of the civilizations it subjugated. Their propaganda machine had convinced countless species that resistance was not only futile but unthinkable. The Empire didn't win battles through superior tactics or technology, it won them before they even began, crushing the will to fight before a single shot was fired. This revelation sparked a debate among humanity's leaders and thinkers. Should they take the fight to the Empire, exploiting its weaknesses to dismantle it entirely? Or should they focus on building alliances with the other species that had been cowed into submission? The latter path seemed more promising. If the Empire's power lay in its ability to isolate and intimidate, then unity among its victims could be the key to its downfall. Humanity's diplomatic arm went to work, reaching out to nearby star systems and attempting to establish contact with species that had fallen under the Empire's shadow. What they found was both heartening and tragic. Many civilizations, though advanced in their own right, had been reduced to vassal states, their cultures and technologies subsumed into the Empire's monolithic structure. Yet beneath the surface, there was resentment, a simmering desire for freedom that had been suppressed for generations. The humans approached these civilizations not as conquerors, but as equals. They shared stories of their encounter with the Empire's fleet, recounting how they had seen through the facade of invincibility. The news spread like wildfire, radiating hope among those who had long believed resistance was impossible. Slowly but surely, humanity began to weave a network of alliances, uniting disparate species under a common cause. Meanwhile, the Empire was reeling. The loss of their fleet, combined with the erosion of their carefully cultivated mystique, sent shockwaves through their ranks. Reports of rebellion began to trickle in from the farthest reaches of their territory, small sparks of defiance inspired by humanity's defiant stand. The Empire scrambled to suppress these uprisings, but their resources were stretched thin. The illusion of control was breaking, and with it, the foundation of their power. For humanity, the next steps were clear. They didn't need to fight the Empire directly to defeat it. The cracks in its structure had been exposed, and with the galaxy watching, all they needed to do was keep pushing. By empowering others to rise up and stand together, they could do what no single species could: dismantle the Galactic Empire piece by piece, without ever firing another shot. The laughter that had echoed across the human fleet during the battle had now spread across the stars. It wasn't just a mockery of the Empire's arrogance, it was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the mightiest can fall when faced with ingenuity, unity, and the unshakable spirit of those who refuse to bow. The Galactic Empire's influence, once thought unshakable, began to erode at an accelerating pace. Humanity's encounter with their fleet had done more than win a battle. It had shattered the myth of invincibility that kept countless civilizations in check. Across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion turned into open defiance. The Empire's iron grip, built on centuries of fear and submission, found itself slipping in ways its rulers had never imagined. For the first time in millennia, their rule was being challenged not by one foe, but by a rising tide of resistance. Humanity became the epicenter of this movement. Their ingenuity and resilience, combined with their refusal to be intimidated, inspired others to break free from the Empire's yoke. Messages from distant systems began flooding human channels, pleas for assistance, offers of alliance, and reports of successful revolts. Species that had spent generations under the Empire's control were now finding strength in the example humanity had set. They no longer saw themselves as powerless vassals, they were fighters ready to reclaim their autonomy. Behind the scenes, humanity worked tirelessly to sustain this momentum. Their leaders and diplomats focused on fostering cooperation among the emerging alliances. This wasn't a simple task. Many of these civilizations had long histories of mistrust, often exacerbated by the Empire's divide and conquer tactics. But the humans had a knack for finding common ground, emphasizing shared goals and the universal desire for freedom. Slowly, species that had once viewed each other as rivals began to see themselves as allies in a greater struggle. The Empire's response was predictable but increasingly ineffective. They launched punitive expeditions against rebellious systems, hoping to quell the uprisings before they could spread further. But these efforts only revealed their growing weakness. The fleets they deployed were understaffed, their tactics outdated, their commanders hesitant. Battles that should have been swift victories for the Empire turned into drawn-out engagements, with resistance forces using guerrilla strategies and human-inspired ingenuity to outmaneuver their attackers. Meanwhile, humanity's technological advantage continued to grow. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock to integrate the recovered fragments of Empire tech into their systems, not to replicate it, but to improve upon it. What emerged was a new generation of ships and weapons, faster and more efficient than anything the galaxy had ever seen. These advancements were shared freely with their allies, leveling the playing field and ensuring that every civilization had the tools to defend itself. One by one, systems began declaring their independence. Worlds that had once been forced to pay tribute to the Empire now stood defiant, their people emboldened by the collective strength of the rebellion. The Empire's emissaries, once feared as harbingers of destruction, now found themselves turned away or mocked outright. Even within the Empire's core territories, dissent was growing. Governors and military leaders, once unquestioningly loyal, began to question the wisdom of their superiors. Some defected outright, taking their fleets and resources with them. For the Empire, the psychological toll was devastating. Their strategy of domination had always relied on an unbroken chain of authority, a belief in their omnipotence that permeated every level of their organization. Now that chain was shattered. The galaxy had seen the truth that the Empire was not an unstoppable force, but a crumbling relic, bloated by centuries of complacency. Humanity remained at the forefront of the movement, not as conquerors, but as facilitators. They refused to impose their will on the galaxy, instead allowing each species to determine its own future. This approach earned them trust and admiration, cementing their reputation as unlikely heroes in a story that spanned countless worlds. They had become the rallying point for a galactic revolution, one that showed no signs of slowing. And yet, even as victory seemed within reach, humanity understood that the struggle was far from over. The Empire, though weakened, still had vast resources at its disposal. Its rulers were desperate and dangerous, capable of unimaginable cruelty in their bid to maintain control. The final confrontation was coming, and humanity would need every ounce of strength, ingenuity, and determination to see it through. For now, though, they had succeeded in doing what many had thought impossible. They had made the galaxy laugh in the face of tyranny, and in doing so, they had set it free. The final blow to the Galactic Empire did not come in a climactic battle of fleets or an epic confrontation on a distant world. Instead, it unfolded as a slow, inexorable collapse, 1,000 fractures spreading across the once mighty colossus. Humanity's defiance had set the wheels in motion, and now the galaxy's collective will ensure the Empire's end. One by one, systems that had lived under its shadow for generations declared independence, their people no longer paralyzed by fear. For the Empire's leadership, the unraveling was chaos. Internal dissent reached a boiling point as governors, fleet commanders, and bureaucrats turned on one another, blaming their failures on everything from human interference to long-standing inefficiencies. The chain of command broke down entirely, with some factions attempting to maintain loyalty while others sought to carve out independent territories. The centralized power that had once held the galaxy in an iron grip now scattered into 1,000 competing pieces. Humanity, watching from the fringes, continued to play its role as a catalyst. Their fleets were strategically deployed not to conquer, but to support newly freed systems, offering protection and resources to ensure their survival during the tumultuous transition. Human diplomats worked tirelessly to foster cooperation among the fragmented remnants of the Empire's former subjects, encouraging them to embrace self-governance and mutual aid. The goal was clear: to build a galaxy no longer defined by domination, but by unity and shared purpose. As the Empire faltered, humanity's alliances flourished. The civilizations that had once lived in isolation, fearful of drawing the Empire's ire, now stood together as equals. Trade routes opened, scientific collaborations blossomed, and cultural exchanges enriched countless worlds. The Galactic Empire had been a prison, stifling innovation and diversity in favor of control. With its fall, the galaxy experienced an explosion of creativity and progress, as species once subjugated began to rediscover their potential. But the collapse was not without its challenges. The remnants of the Empire's military, though fractured, were still dangerous. Rogue admirals, desperate to cling to power, launched raids on defenseless systems, hoping to establish their own fiefdoms. Humanity and its allies responded swiftly, using the advanced technology they had developed to neutralize these threats without unnecessary bloodshed. These rogue factions were disarmed and dismantled, their forces reintegrated into the new galactic order. Perhaps the most surprising outcome of the Empire's fall was the effect it had on the humans themselves. As the galaxy's unlikely liberators, they had gone from being an unknown species to a symbol of resilience and hope. But humanity did not let this newfound status breed arrogance. They remained committed to their principles, refusing to claim dominance or special privileges in the new galactic landscape. Their humility and willingness to work alongside others earned them allies and respect far beyond what military victories alone could achieve. In the end, the Galactic Empire's downfall was not merely a victory for humanity, it was a victory for the galaxy as a whole. The rebellion had transcended species and borders, proving that cooperation and courage could overcome even the most entrenched tyranny. The galaxy was forever changed, its future no longer dictated by fear, but shaped by the collective dreams of its countless inhabitants. For humanity, the journey was far from over. They had not sought to change the galaxy, but in standing up to the Empire, they had inadvertently become its architects. Their role in the new order was not one of rulers, but of partners, innovators, and explorers. They had faced the so-called invincible Galactic Empire and found it wanting. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that the greatest strength was not in domination, but in the shared laughter of those who refused to be afraid. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of humanity's courage, wit, and triumph among the stars. Stay tuned for more adventures that will keep you on the edge of your seat.